The house you were supposed to inherit was sold, not by your parents, by the banks, who took it from somebody else's parents and handed it to a hedge fund while we were in college. Let me walk you through it. Okay, receipts episode. We're due. The last few videos have been stances, reflections, the philosophy of what we're doing here. That stuff matters. But every so often we owe ourselves the documented version. The version with the actual names. The version you can pull up at Thanksgiving and hand to your uncle when he tells you to save harder. Here's the thing about anger. There's vague anger and there's specific anger. Vague anger is the one they like us to have. The kind of floating around, blaming the economy, blaming our parents, blaming ourselves. That anger doesn't go anywhere. Specific anger has a name attached, a dollar amount, a date, a photograph of the office building where the decision got made. That's the anger I want us to have tonight. So let's go. The topic is houses, specifically the single-family home. The thing my grandfather did for my dad. The thing some of your parents did for you. The thing, and I want to be honest about this, that statistically our generations are not going to be able to do for our kids because the housing stock that used to get passed down has been moved quietly, systematically, at industrial scale, out of family ownership and into corporate ownership during the years we've been alive. I know that sentence sounds like a conspiracy theory. I would have laughed at it 5 years ago. But the data is on the Federal Reserve's website. The companies that did this file 10K disclosures with the SEC every year. The story has been reported in every major American newspaper by journalists across the political spectrum for over a decade. The only reason it doesn't feel like common knowledge is it's been told in pieces. A business section article here, an academic paper there, a viral thread that gets buried 2 days later. Not many people have bothered to assemble the whole thing in one place for a general audience. Maybe a few. I'm going to assemble it right now. To understand this, we'll have to go back to 2008, specifically the foreclosure wave. From 2007 to about 2014, and this number is going to sound made up, but check it. Roughly 10 million American homes went into foreclosure. 10 million. That's Realty Track. That's CoreLogic. Both tracked it as it was happening. And these weren't investment properties. These were primary residences. Houses with kids' bedrooms and Christmas trees in the window and grandma's couch in the living room. Houses bought on the totally reasonable assumption that the bank would honor the loan and the economy wouldn't collapse. When the foreclosures hit, the federal response, and this is bipartisan, this is Bush in 2008 and Obama from 2009 on, the federal response focused on the banks, trillions, TARP, the Fed's emergency lending facilities, AIG, Fannie and Freddie. Money poured into the financial sector. A much smaller fraction went to homeowners. There was a program called HAMP, supposed to keep families in their houses by modifying their mortgages. The SIGTARP inspector, that's the inspector general for the TARP program, not me being partisan, the government's own auditor, concluded HAMP failed to help most of the people it was designed to help. Foreclosures kept happening. Houses kept hitting the auction block. This is where private capital walks in. Because what nobody had bothered to anticipate, because the economics had never worked, is that those foreclosed houses were about to become the foundation of an entirely new asset class. Wall Street had never really done single-family rentals at scale. It was too hard. Thousands of houses scattered across thousands of zip codes. Hard to manage, hard to find tenants, hard to maintain. Before 2008, single-family rental was a mom-and-pop market. Your aunt with 3 rentals, the retired teacher with a duplex. I worked with somebody who managed a couple rentals myself. 2008 broke that math wide open. Suddenly there were millions of houses available at 30, 40 cents on the dollar of what they'd cost 2 years earlier. And an entire generation of displaced families who needed somewhere to rent. Often the very houses they'd just been foreclosed out of. Supply unprecedented. Demand unprecedented. And one technology had just matured to the point where this was actually possible. Institutional property management software combined with mobile workforce dispatching. You could now, for the first time, profitably manage thousands of scattered houses from a single office in Manhattan. The pieces aligned. Wall Street showed up. Okay, I want to name the names now, because this is the receipts portion. Named perpetrators, the architects of the transfer, 2008 to present. Blackstone Group, first mover. Between 2012 and 2016, Blackstone purchased over 50,000 single-family homes through its subsidiary Invitation Homes, becoming the largest single-family landlord in the United States. Invitation Homes went public in 2017 at a $5 billion valuation. Blackstone exited its position by 2019, having generated billions in profit. This is the deal that proved the asset class. Holdings at peak, approximately 80,000 homes. Valuation at IPO, $5 billion. Invitation Homes, public company. The Blackstone spinoff still operates as the largest single-family rental company in the United States. As of 2024, Invitation Homes owns approximately 85,000 single-family homes across 16 markets, concentrated heavily in the Sun Belt: Atlanta, Phoenix, Tampa, Charlotte, Dallas. Reported revenue in 2023 is $2.4 billion. They are publicly traded. You can look up the 10K. Holdings approximately 85,000 homes. Revenue as of 2023, $2.4 billion. American Homes for Rent, public company. Now operating as AMH after a rebrand. Second largest single-family rental landlord. Approximately 60,000 homes across 22 states. Acquired thousands of homes through bulk auction purchases following 2008 and has since shifted to a build-to-rent model, constructing entire subdivisions specifically as rental inventory that will never be sold to individual families. Holdings approximately 60,000 homes. Strategy shift, build-to-rent. Progress Residential, Pretium Partners, private. Pretium Partners, founded by former Goldman Sachs executive Don Mullen, operates Progress Residential, approximately 85,000 homes under management. Privately held, less transparent than public REITs, but extensively reported on for aggressive eviction practices during the COVID period. The private equity stakeholder project has tracked their filings closely. Holdings approximately 85,000 homes. Founder background, Goldman Sachs. Tricon Residential, Blackstone. In 2024, Blackstone acquired Tricon Residential in a $3.5 billion deal. Tricon manages roughly 38,000 single-family homes across the U.S. The acquisition consolidated even more of the corporate single-family rental market under Blackstone's umbrella. The deal closed in 2024. Holdings, approximately 38,000 homes. Acquired by Blackstone in 2024 for approximately $3.5 billion. Roofstock, Open Door, iBuyer platforms, tech. A second wave of corporate single-family buyers operates through algorithmic purchasing platforms that make all-cash offers on family homes before they reach the open market. These platforms collectively purchased hundreds of thousands of homes at their peak, about 2020 through 2022, before scaling back during the rate hike cycle. Many of those homes were resold to institutional landlords. Mechanism: algorithmic all-cash offers. Result: outbidding family buyers. That's not all of them. There are more. I had to leave some out because the segment was running a bit long, but those are the names that built the asset class. Blackstone provided the model. Invitation Homes 2017 IPO confirmed it. After that, every major institutional investor on earth wanted in. Pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, insurance companies, university endowments. The buying accelerated. By 2021, and this is the number I think every millennial and Gen Z should commit to memory, in some metro areas, corporate buyers were purchasing more than a quarter of all single-family homes that came up for sale. A quarter. Specific markets, according to Redfin and CoreLogic, in 2021 and 2022, in metros like Atlanta, Charlotte, Jacksonville, Memphis, parts of Phoenix and Houston, institutional buyers, REITs, corporate landlords accounted for between 20% and 33% of all single-family home purchases in any given quarter. Stop and think about that. In a country where the single biggest engine of middle-class wealth building for 100 years has been home ownership, where 60% of household wealth is held in home equity, a third of the houses sold in major Sunbelt metros or getting scooped up by entities that have no intention of ever selling them back to a family. This is the largest transfer of single-family residential real estate from family ownership to corporate ownership in American history. It happened during our adult lives. It was made possible by federal policy choices that, in 2008 and 2009, prioritized banks over families. and it was executed by a small number of companies whose 10Ks you can pull up on the SEC website tonight. A third of the houses sold in our biggest metros were bought by entities that will never sell them back to a family. We will not inherit them. Nobody will inherit them. That was the point. All right, so what does this actually mean for us on the ground in our actual lives? Because the dollar amounts and the corporate names are abstract until you connect them to what's happening on your street, in your neighborhood, with your friends who are trying to buy. First consequence, the supply of houses available to family buyers gets compressed. When an institutional buyer makes an all-cash offer above asking, no contingencies, no inspection negotiations, no waiting for the loan to clear, a family with a 20% down payment and a mortgage pre-approved cannot compete. Cannot. The family isn't bidding against another family. The family is bidding against a $10 billion fund. Family loses. This happens hundreds of thousands of times a year. Cumulatively, it prices families out of entire markets, not because they don't have money, but because they don't have the right kind of money. Instant, unconditional, infinite. Second consequence, the houses these companies buy don't come back, ever. The business model is hold the house indefinitely, extract rent year after year, raise the rent at the legal maximum every renewal. And when the housing cycle turns, sell the entire portfolio to another fund or IPO, the whole thing again. The houses move between corporate owners. They don't move back to families. The family ownership pool shrinks permanently every year. Third consequence, and this one's getting actively prosecuted right now. The rents are not market set the way rents used to be. These landlords have been documented repeatedly using algorithmic pricing software. The one that's been reported on the most is called RealPage. The DOJ has filed antitrust action. The pricing isn't what a competitive market would produce. It's what a coordinated set of large players can extract. The rent you pay reflects that. Your wages do not. Fourth, and honestly, this is the one nobody talks about. The houses themselves are getting worse. ProPublica, the New York Times, the Atlantic, local outlets across the Sun Belt, they've all done investigations, and the story is consistent. Slow maintenance, refused repairs, mold, broken HVAC, plumbing left for weeks. Houses that family used to take care of because they were going to pass them down. Those same houses are being depreciated slowly by owners who don't want to live in them, don't know the neighbors, and have a fiduciary obligation to maximize quarterly returns. The housing stock itself is getting worse. That's not an opinion. That's documented in court filings and local news in 12 states. Okay, here's the part that genuinely pisses me off. The part that I want every person watching this to walk away with. A lot of these companies got favorable federal treatment during the 2008 crisis. The funds that bought thousands of foreclosed homes, most of them did it with capital directly enabled by Federal Reserve policy in the post-crisis period. Low interest rates, emergency lending facilities, quantitative easing. All of that made it cheap and easy for big investors to access the capital they needed to make all-cash purchases on foreclosed inventory. So the same federal policy environment that failed to keep families in their homes at the same time made it easier for hedge funds to buy those homes once the families were out. The two halves of the policy weren't an accident. They were a system. The system protected the banks, let the houses come onto the market at fire sale prices, then provided cheap capital to the buyers who scooped them up. I'm not making this up. You can verify every piece of it. The Federal Reserve was both the rescuer of last resort for the banks and the unintentional enabler of the largest corporate housing acquisition in American history. And the architects who made those policy calls, Hank Paulson, Ben Bernanke, Tim Geithner, Larry Summers, they all retired into senior positions at private equity, consulting firms, asset management, firms that benefited directly from the environment those same people created at the Fed and the Treasury. The revolving door spun fast on this one. Real fast. The federal response to 2008 stabilized the banks. It did not stabilize the families. The houses the families lost were then bought with cheap capital created by the same Fed by funds whose executives now run the agencies that wrote the rescue. Read the timeline. The timeline is the indictment. Okay, I want to address something the audience already knows, but we have to say it out loud because the older generation does not want to hear it. The story most boomers tell about why our generations can't buy houses is we're bad with money. Too much coffee, too many subscriptions, we travel too much, we don't save, we don't budget, we're entitled, we expect to be handed things, we are the reason, we're always somehow the reason. That story is so consistent, it functions as a script. Cable news, family dinners, social media, reported identically by people who never bothered to look at the data, because the data would interfere with the explanation that makes them comfortable. The data is right there. It's free. It's on the Fed's website. We are not bad with money. We are competing against capital structures that did not exist when our parents bought their houses. The median millennial buyer is doing exactly what the median boomer buyer did at the same age, getting a degree, working a job, saving up, and finding out that the asset they're saving toward is being bought over their heads by the entities that cannot be outbid. It's not a character flaw. It's a math problem. And the math problem is that the housing market has been partially privatized into an asset class that competes against family buyers using mechanisms family buyers do not have. So next time your uncle at Thanksgiving tells you to just save harder, pull up the chart of corporate purchases as a share of single-family home sales in Atlanta, 2010 to 2024. Show him. The chart is public. It rises like a hockey stick. Your savings habits are not the variable in that chart. The variable is the policy that lets the chart look that way. Screenshot it. Use it. All right, we've done the receipts. The receipts are real. Now I want to do what we always do, which is turn the corner. Because the indictment alone produces despair. The position produces movement. We need both. Here's what we're deciding, stances we're adopting, given what we now know. Some of you have already adopted some of these. Some are new. Take what's useful, discard what isn't. Stances we are adopting. We do not apologize for not owning a home in a market designed to keep us out of it. We do not accept the framing that our renting is a personal failure. We do not rent quietly from corporate landlords. We name them. We support every policy, city, state, federal, that limits corporate single-family ownership. Every one. We do not believe the market is fixing this. The market caused this. We vote locally. Zoning is housing. Zoning is power. We build wealth differently than our parents did because the path they use no longer exists for us. We do not despair. We organize. Different verbs, different generations. 8 stances. Each one a small decision. Together they're how we walk through this knowing what we know. I want to deep dive one of them because honestly, it's the one that's been most useful to me personally, and I think it'll be useful to you. The third one. We do not rent quietly from corporate landlords. We name them. When somebody asks you where you live, instead of a house in the suburbs, say, I rent from Invitation Homes. I rent from Progress Residential. I rent from American Homes for Rent. Don't let the landlord be incidental. The landlord is the asset class. The landlord is the system. Naming them is how the system becomes visible. Right now, most renters in single-family corporate housing don't even know who owns their house because the ownership is structured through the layers of LLCs designed to obscure it. Find out. Look up the parcel. Check the legal owner. The owner is rarely a person. It's almost always a fund. Knowing the name is the first move toward being able to organize against the thing the fund is a part of. And then tell people, at work, on social media, at dinner. The information isn't secret. The 10Ks are filed. The journalism is written. The information has just never been assembled into a coherent picture for the audience whose generation was the target of the transfer. Be the person who assembles it. Pass it on. Make it normal to know who owns the housing in your neighborhood the way it's normal to know who owns your phone company. Knowing who owns the assets is the first step in changing who owns them. One more thing about what comes next, because I want to leave this with movement, not with weight. The corporate single-family ownership project is not invulnerable. It's large, but it's recent. The asset class did not exist before 2008. It got built up over 15 years through specific policy choices. It can be unwound through specific policy choices in either direction. There are proposals on the table already. Senator Sherrod Brown limits on institutional single-family ownership. Senator Jeff Merkley the End Hedge Fund Control on American Homes Act, introduced in 2023, state-level proposals in Ohio, Minnesota, California, transfer taxes, vacancy taxes, the DOJ antitrust case on the pricing software. The political will here is bipartisan in a weird way, because some Republican voters also hate Blackstone owning their neighborhood. The opposition is concentrated where you'd expect, the financial sector, which lobbies, donates, and revolves through both parties' policy infrastructure. The fight is real. It's happening at municipal, state, and federal levels right now. And millennials and Gen Z together are the largest voter bloc directly harmed by this transfer. We're not yet voting in numbers proportionate to our share of the electorate. As we do, the math starts to move. We're not powerless in this fight. We're just early in it. And in the meantime, in the years before the policy catches up, we make the choices that protect our own well-being. We organize as tenants. We refuse to be quietly extracted from. We pool resources. We help each other find housing with mom-and-pop landlords where the rent doesn't feed the asset class. We act collectively, because collective is the level the problem requires. The house your grandparents had, the one with the porch, the one with the swing in the back, the kitchen where 4 generations did Thanksgiving. That house, statistically, right now, is more likely to belong to a fund manager in Manhattan than to your family. The transfer happened while we weren't looking. We're looking now. The looking is the first move. What comes after the looking is the work of the next 20 years. And we have the next 20 years. They do not. Demographics, as always, are on our side. Capital, for now, is on theirs. The fight is on the line where those two meet. We just have to keep showing up to it. They sold the house you were supposed to inherit. We know who bought it. We know what it cost. We are coming for it.